International Soccer Preview. And we are Soccer Files Canada. Welcome to the short version of Series 19, looking at the groups and teams of the 2023 Asian Cup, played in Qatar in January 2024. This episode is looking at Group F: Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kyrgyzstan, and Thailand. Here we go. The International Soccer Preview. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Kira.
Yes, and in this short version here, we're replacing parts 1 and 2 of the full-length version with a short summary of each team's history and a look at their recent form.
In the full-length version, Connor and Kevin introduce the teams in part 1, where they give some information about each country's location, population, and so on. Then in part 2, they give a history of each team with a deep dive into Asian Cup Finals history. They also look into the performances in recent tournaments and end with an overview of the players.
Yeah, so in this MediaCast, the short version, we're going to tag on part 3 from that full-length version, which is Connor and my discussion of the prospects of each team.
So if this short version grabs your interest, keep your eye out for the full-length versions and player versions, which will come out later in 2023.
Stay tuned at the end for more information on accessing those and other MediaCasts.
Okay, so without delay, let's get into the 4 teams of Group F of the Asian Cup Finals. These are Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kyrgyzstan, and Thailand.
Right, so let's begin with the first team, Saudi Arabia, and we're going to start with a look at their kind of history, and then Kiera will give you the recent form. So in terms of their long history, characterizing Saudi Arabia is quite difficult. They certainly are a first-tier team in the World Cup, reaching 6 of the last 8 tournaments. They impressed in their first appearance in 1994, passing the group stage for their best result in that tournament. That was slow in coming, given they had won 2 of the previous 3 Asian Cups, coming second in the other. Alongside this, they had looked second tier in World Cup qualifications, reaching only 2 of 4 final rounds and finishing near or at the bottom of the table once there. Their World Cup and Asian Cup form overlapped between 1994 and 2004, a top-tier team in both. But just as they became consistent in World Cup play, their form collapsed in Asian Cup play. A ghastly showing in the 2004 Asian Cup seemed a one-off when they finished second in the 2007 edition, but in fact that form remained poor as they failed to pass the group stage all the way until 2019. Only in 2014 was the form poor in both competitions, but in World Cup play they remained strong enough to reach the finals in 2018 and 2022. As confusing as this bipolar form is, it only gets worse when looking at their local tournaments. They seem to sway from being a top-tier team to a third-tier team, especially in the Gulf Nations Cup, where from 2010 they have alternated between group stage exits and second-place finishes.
Looking at their recent performance, in some ways their form has settled a bit in recent times. Reaching the World Cups in 2018 and 2022 saw convincing qualifications, certainly that of a first-tier team. It was second tier in 2019, but they were unfortunate to meet both finalists over their last 2 games. Hints of that inconsistent form do exist, though, none better than beating eventual champions Argentina in the 2022 World Cup, only to lose both games to mediocre teams after. In local tournaments, they have been poor. Winning the Gulf Nations Cup in 2019, they were knocked out at the group stage in not only that tournament in 2023, but in the Western Asian Football Federation Cup in 2019 and the Arab Cup in 2021, making them seem a third-tier team.
Okay, so hard to put a finger on Saudi Arabia. And we'll move on to take a look at Oman. And despite playing their first international game in 1965, Oman did not fully join the fray until 1990. They began quite weakly but improved steadily, in World Cup play at least, to reach the final round of qualifying in 2002. Their improvement seemed more abrupt in Asian Cup play, where their campaign suddenly became competitive in 2004. Regardless, they maintained a higher level of competitiveness in both competitions from that time forward. In World Cup play, this meant reaching the final round of qualifying half the time, though finishing in the bottom half of the table once there. In Asian Cup play, it meant reaching the tournament every time except for 2011, but dropping at the group stage once there. Local cups add a bit more shading to the picture. Teams of the Arabian Gulf have too many competitions, but the Gulf Nations Cup is the steadiest. Their spike in form in that competition around 2004 matches their improvement in the larger cups. They also had a recent spike at that level, winning their second title in 2017, although that doesn't register in the larger cups.
In looking at their recent performance, it would seem that their 2017 Gulf Nations Cup title does register at the regional level, with their first passing of the Asian Cup group stage in 2019. However, a closer analysis of that suggests it's not an improvement, but a result of the Asian Cup expanding. Oman advanced in third place with a win over third-tier Turkmenistan, earning them their only point in the tournament. In their defense, they otherwise faced top-tier teams and strong second-tier Uzbekistan, teams of a level that they have never really contended with. Oman remains a competitive but weak second-tier team in most recent campaigns. However, they were a strong second-tier team in the 2022 World Cup qualifying and carried that forward into the most recent Gulf Cup, where they finished second.
All right. Oman is the second or pot 2 team in the group, and we move on to the pot 3 team, Kyrgyzstan. So Kyrgyzstan began competing in 1996, but they were a weak team. Though they were a nemesis to second-tier teams Syria and later Jordan, they generally were no match for second-tier teams and also lost to some third-tier teams, especially Tajikistan. In World Cup play, they never reached the final round and were only sometimes competitive in the semi-final round, sometimes not even reaching that. In Asian Cup play, they were weak enough that they joined the AFC Challenge Cup. That's kind of a tournament for weaker teams in the region, or as the AFC put it, teams in need of development. They did well in the first edition of that tournament in 2006, reaching the semi-final, but after that they did poorly, reaching the group stage at best and not even qualifying for 2 editions. For the expanded 2019 Asian Cup, weak teams were called back into the main qualifying, a clever new system designed to give them competition at their own level.
In looking at their recent performance, while remaining firmly a third-tier team, they have taken advantage of that expanded Asian Cup, which now affords some third-tier teams opportunities in the competition. It seems the Challenge Cup did its job in developing them because they qualified for the 2019 and 2023 editions. They even passed the group stage in 2019, but that looks better on paper than in analysis. It was earned on the strength of a single win over Philippines. Nevertheless, they were competitive with the stronger teams, losing to 2 of them by only a 1-goal margin and taking UAE to extra time in the round of 16. The World Cup qualifications also show them more competitive, but again with mostly third-tier teams, although they continued to pester Jordan in 2018.
All right, that is Kyrgyzstan, and the 4th team in the group is Thailand. Thailand is generally a third-tier team that struggles at the campaign level with first and second-tier teams. In their stronger years, they can be competitive with second-tier teams and have even snatched draws off Iran and South Korea. Such things are more rare in World Cup play, where they have only reached the final round of qualifying twice. It's less rare in Asian Cup play, where they finished third in 1972, reaching 5 cups in a row between 1992 and 2007, and then reaching the cup again in 2019.
In terms of their recent performance, the Asian Cup performance in 2019 is one of their best examples of challenging second-tier teams. In qualifying, they tied Iraq twice. Usually such results are at the game level, but in this case, it registered at the campaign level as they finished the group in first ahead of Iraq. So too did a win over Bahrain and a tie over UAE in the group stage, earning them second place and passage to the final rounds for the first time in 50 years. The 2023 campaign saw them beat UAE again, but this remained a game level victory. These recent campaigns ended with losses to China and Uzbekistan, showing that they are at best competitive with second-tier teams, but not among them.
All right, so that is Thailand, and that brings us to the end of this summary and a look at the recent performances of Group A. Oh, hang on.
Group F.
What have I done? Okay, we just have to re-record that section.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just make sure the graphic is in the right place here. So if you could do the last line, but just let me make a note on it here.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, if you take it away there.
Okay. These recent campaigns ended with losses to China and Uzbekistan, showing that they are at best competitive with second-tier teams, but not among them.
Okay, and that actually brings us to the end of the summary and look at recent performances for Group F.
Yeah, we'll now move into part 3 of the full-length discussion, where Connor and Kevin will discuss the prospects of these teams.
And I said at the beginning, this is maybe one of the more interesting groups where it won't necessarily go according to pot order. Do you think so?
I think this is a wide open group, and I think the confusion we saw around the world rankings kind of shows that. I think Saudi Arabia are probably a stronger team than Oman, despite ELO placing Oman higher. But Oman seemed to be in a good period. And maybe I'll turn it to you. Do you think Oman are roughly at the same level of Saudi Arabia?
Oh, it's hard to say because, you know, Saudi Arabia have the talent to easily win this group, but whether they don't always send the talent or don't always show the talent on the team, they're so inconsistent. You know, in the World Cup, we'd have to say, like, reaching most of the recent World Cups, of course, they're a first-tier team. We've seen in the local cups that they sometimes drop at the group stage, losing to third-tier teams. And in the Asian Cup, it's hard to put a pin on where they're at. Even throughout their history, they were weak at first, then they had a period of strength. And then in 2004, it was a ghastly campaign, and that turned out to be the standard roughly until now. So I don't know what to make of them. Do you have a sense whether they'll bring their best to this cup?
I'm sure they will. They have a new boss in Roberto Mancini too, who's likely to want to impress. I think with Saudi Arabia, I think it's clear that they do put, you know, some less emphasis on the local cups. But for a country of their size, I mean, they're 37 million to Oman, less than 5. Even a Saudi Arabia B team or possibly even a Saudi Arabia U23 team should be doing better given the size of the country and their frequent, World Cup appearances. So whether it shows just a lack of depth or something else, I think it perhaps shows that they're not quite as strong, all the way down with B and C or youth teams as you might expect them to be.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not as strong as we saw with the even the FIFA rankings, not as strong as the other pot one teams in the region. Having said that, though, they did beat Japan in the final round of World Cup qualifying, so we know they have it in them. I just think there is room for them to maybe not finish first here, and sometimes lapsing as much as finishing third, which I wouldn't be completely shocked to see, but they should pass the group stage.
Yeah, they definitely should, and they have enough quality, and I think when they do bring their best, they have shown that they are a tier 1 team. But like you said, they're not entirely without their lapses. I think Oman can be competitive with them. I think there's a bit of rivalry being neighbors. I don't think Saudi Arabia would drop below first, but I think they could drop points to Oman and possibly to even another team in the group, probably more likely Thailand.
Yeah, maybe safe to say that they're not guaranteed first place here, although I think Saudi soccer fans would be disappointed if they didn't take first.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as Oman goes, as you said, kind of steady improvement and good recent campaigns. But you're right, there's only so much a country of their size can be expected to achieve. So they've never really challenged first place or top tier teams at the campaign level. We do expect them to get past the group stage here, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, they made it to the final round of World Cup qualification and performed pretty admirably once there. They've done well in local cups. So I think they're a strong team. I think they could be a second tier team, certainly recently. So I would expect them to get through the group. And I think for them, second would be the minimum requirement. And I think, could they finish first? It's certainly possible and would be a great achievement if they could do it.
If they do finish first, of course, that would give them an easier passage going forward. How far do you see Oman getting in the cup?
I think it depends. I mean, I'm not sure I would predict them to beat a first tier team if that's who they meet. But if they met another second tier team, a UAE or a team like that, Iraq or Jordan, I think they're capable of going at least to the final 8.
Oh, to the quarterfinals. I agree with you there. A different story with Saudi Arabia. I could see them finishing anywhere, say, between the semi-finals and dropping out at the group stage.
Yeah, more erratic for sure.
Yeah. How much? Maybe we'll talk first about the relative strength of Kyrgyzstan and Thailand. I think I mentioned in the podcast that I don't really see Thailand as a pot 4 team. How do you think these two compare?
Yeah, Thailand has shown some inconsistency over recent years, but I do think that they are a third tier team. They're a team that should expect to reach this tournament and try and pick up a few points once here. For Kyrgyzstan, I kind of understand their ELO ranking. I simply don't understand how they're a top 100 team according to FIFA. I just don't see the results kind of at any level to justify this. I think Kyrgyzstan is a team that probably does well to reach the cup. I don't know they would expect to reach the cup year after year, whereas I think Thailand, they should be aiming for that. So I definitely agree with ELO. I think Thailand are stronger than Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, I mean, we did see Kyrgyzstan with a competitive performance in the last cup. I mean, okay, they got to the round of 16 on the strength of beating the Philippines, which is no great achievement, but respectable results against second tier teams or even first tier teams, losing by only a goal. But they did lose those games, and as you say, I don't see anything that happened in 2015 that boosted them up like 75 points in FIFA rankings. They lost 3-0 recently to Oman in a tournament that they were co-hosting. So there's really, nothing to really pin their pot 3 ranking above Thailand on.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think Kyrgyzstan, will probably, they might keep the score down against Saudi Arabia and Oman, but I don't see them getting points. I only see them really getting points from Thailand if Thailand are kind of having an off day, which we've seen from Thailand before. But I think that's their best and possibly only realistic shot at points.
Yeah, I mean, at their best, Thailand can take points off of second-tier teams. So I definitely think Thailand is a bigger threat to Oman or even a surprise over Saudi Arabia than Kyrgyzstan is. But they're kind of inconsistent at both ends too, where they sometimes disappointingly lose to third-tier teams. So it really depends on form, I think, for Thailand coming into the Cup. I think, on the balance of things, they're probably the third-tier team ahead of Kyrgyzstan, but they're also a bit more inconsistent. So if they're in poor form, I could see them finishing fourth.
Yeah, I mean, they do well in their region, but the Southeast Asian region is by no means the strongest. I think Thailand have probably lapsed a little bit recently, with some kind of poor performances, but I don't see that as being like a downward trend. I expect Thailand to do a bit better in World Cup qualifying and even Asians Cups than they have done.
Yeah, they've always been a bit up and down rather than kind of big swings of strength and weakness. And actually, if we do say a big swing for Thailand, apart from the 2022 World Cup campaign, they've won 4 out of 5 of their local cups. So you'd have to say that, it's kind of an upward trend for them. It's possible that one of these teams will get through as a third place finisher. They'd probably have to do respectably well against Saudi Arabia or Oman. Do you see this group producing a third place finisher that'll advance?
I'm not sure if I do. I think this is one of the weaker groups overall. I think in Kyrgyzstan, they probably have the weakest third-tier team. In Thailand for pot 4. I mean, if they beat Kyrgyzstan, they may be okay. It might just come down to goal difference. So I think, if Thailand do well against Saudi Arabia and Oman, which they could do, presuming that the third place team, they could get through. However, a heavy defeat would probably eliminate that possibility.
Definitely a heavy defeat will probably prevent a third place advance. But I got to actually disagree with you, because I do think the third place teams tend to be the ones in groups that share the points a bit more. And I could see Saudi Arabia and even Oman giving up some points here. So, if Kyrgyzstan or Thailand could grab a tie off one of those teams and then beat the weaker team, I actually think it's possible. I mean, if you look at a team with, say, 2 strong and 2 weak teams in the group, then the weak teams would only get 3 points and not have a third place finisher that advances. But I think the points could be shared enough here that third place would advance.
No, you've made a strong enough argument that you do convince me. I think this will be a competitive group. I think, I mean, there's probably a stronger and a weaker team here, but I don't expect necessarily that Saudi Arabia walk all over this group, and I think points will be shared between teams with ties or close games. So I think it's competitive for sure, and I think this is a group where if we do see a surprise in the group stage, it could come from this group.
Yeah, I kind of like this group in that I think it'll be a bit more interesting. Well, the others will be interesting if things don't go the way we predicted, but I think this one is a bit harder to predict than most of the groups. But it's time, Connor. It's time for you to lay down the smack on this group.
All right. I am going to say Saudi Arabia first, but and Oman second, but I'm kind of big on Oman. I think they've done well recently. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them get first place, possibly a tie with first place on Saudi Arabia, say with 7 points or something like that. I'm going to say Thailand third and Kyrgyzstan fourth. You agree?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could kind of throw out some fighting words here, but I agree with you completely. I wouldn't be bold enough to pick Oman to win the group, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if they did. Um, Again, Saudi Arabia, I wouldn't be surprised really by anything other than them finishing fourth. I think I would be a bit surprised by that. And I think it could be a good battle between Thailand and Kyrgyzstan. I do give Thailand the edge there, but form, form means a lot. So I think if Kyrgyzstan comes in good form, if they were as tough as they were in 2019, I think they could take third, but we don't consistently see them that tough. So
Yeah.
I'd have to give the edge to Ireland or Thailand. Again, not surprised if it goes against that, though.
Yeah. Do you see Thailand with any chance of overtaking Oman?
Not really. I think at the game level, they've taken some points off Oman. I think they could take a tie here, but I think at the campaign level, I wouldn't expect to see them strong enough to really. I'd almost say they're more likely to take points off Saudi Arabia than Oman.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think there is a bit of a gap between Oman and Saudi Arabia, but points are possible. We'll see.
We originally planned to tag on our past, present, and future plans for the media cast, but we have instead decided to put a link to that 10-minute video in the show notes. It covers what we're working on and what we plan to do over the next 9 months. We'd like to thank Naver Avachan and Pixabay for the wonderful music you hear in this media cast. The title is called Arabic Trap.